1985, just 17 kilometers from Agra, in a small village called Baljain, Titu Singh, also known as Titu, was barely 2 years old. But he had already started speaking clearly and fluently. For any parent, it's usually a moment of joy when their child begins to talk properly. But in Titu's case, this quality became more of a worry for his parents than happiness. When Titu turned 2, he started saying strange things. One day he told his father, "Please take care of my wife and children because I'm getting food here, but I'm really worried about them." When his mother asked who he was talking about, he replied that he was talking about his real family who lived in Agra. He kept repeating to his parents, "You people are not my real mother and father. My real parents are in Agra." He would suddenly start crying and tell his mother, "I've just come here like this. I want to go back to my real home. I miss it a lot." Whenever anyone asked who he was, he would say, "I don't belong to this house." In the beginning, everyone ignored it, thinking it was just a child's imagination. Obviously, that's what anyone would do. But then 1988 came. 3 years had passed. Now 5-year-old Titu started saying and doing things that left his parents deeply worried. One day Titu declared that his real name was Suresh Varma. He said he had a wife named Uma and 2 sons named Romu and Somu. He even gave his father's name as Chandabarti. He told them he had a bungalow in Agra and a shop named Suresh Radios in Sadar Bazaar. Not only that, he described how one evening, while returning home in his car, 2 men shot him in the head and he died on the spot. Sometimes he would say they took him to the hospital and then to the cremation ground. He even described how his body was cremated, the fire was lit, and then his ashes were immersed in the Yamuna River. A 5-year-old child talking about having a wife and kids, and explaining how he was murdered in his previous life. What would you think? Soon the news spread throughout the village. Everyone came to the same conclusion: a ghost had possessed Titu. In Indian villages, the ghost theory usually comes first, and that's exactly what happened here. Titu's behavior had become completely different from other children his age. Even though he was only 5, his language, style, tone, expressions, and way of speaking had become like that of an adult. He started making fun of his parents' poverty. He would tell his mother, "My wife doesn't wear old torn saris like you. My mother wears expensive 2,000 rupee saris. Don't go out in these dirty clothes." He would say, "I can't live in this dirty house. I'm going back to my bungalow." And then he would actually start packing his small clothes into a bag like a grown man and say, "Let's go." When his family scolded him and tried to stop him, he would threaten to run away from home. He refused to travel by foot or bus and insisted, "I only travel in my own car." Titu was the youngest of 6 siblings. His behavior had become a huge problem for his parents. He didn't consider his mother as his mother, his father as his father, or his brothers and sisters as family. He was always stuck on one thing: "I'm just passing my days here." So his parents asked their eldest son Ashok to find out the truth behind all these stories. Was this just Titu's imagination? Or was someone teaching him all this? To check the truth, Ashok and his friend headed from the village to Sadar Bazaar in Agra because Titu always mentioned a shop called Suresh Radios there. They searched for the shop but couldn't find it at first. Tired, they sat down at one place when Ashok's eyes suddenly fell on a board: Suresh Radios. The exact same name Titu kept mentioning. Ashok was stunned. Could all the other things Titu said also be true? Was Titu really the reincarnation of Suresh? Welcome to the show. You're watching the case of Titu. Back in 1983 in Agra, Suresh Varma was a businessman who owned an electronic shop called Suresh Radios in Sadar Bazaar. He lived in a bungalow with his wife Uma, 2 children, parents, and brothers. On the evening of August 28, 1983, 4 months before Titu was born, Suresh was returning home in his white Fiat car. 2 criminals were already waiting for him near his house. As soon as Suresh stopped the car at his gate and honked, the 2 men opened fire. By the time his family rushed out after hearing the gunshots, Suresh was already dead. The bullet had hit the right side of his temple. The murderers escaped immediately. Since it was 1983, there weren't many people around, especially in the evening. No eyewitness came forward. The police eventually closed the case without arresting anyone.
Suresh was gone.
Now the responsibility of the shop, the house, and the family fell on his wife Uma. She started running the shop. Now, let's fast forward 5 years to 1988. Ashok was standing shocked in front of the same shop. He went inside and met a lady. It was Suresh's wife Uma. When Ashok said he wanted to meet Suresh, Uma told him the entire story of the murder. Ashok was shaken because everything Uma described matched exactly what Titu had been saying: his wife's name, his children's names, the shop's name, and even the cause of death. Sometimes the truth is so heavy that it's hard to digest. Uma then asked Ashok who he was and what he wanted with Suresh. Now it was Uma's turn to be shocked. Ashok told her that he lived in a village called Baljan, 17 kilometers from Agra, and explained the whole situation about Titu. Uma found it hard to believe. She said maybe Titu had read about the case in the newspaper since it was big news at the time. Ashok replied that Titu had been talking about all this since he was so small that he hadn't even learned to speak properly. This left Uma both curious and confused. She told Suresh's parents everything. They were shocked, but also happy thinking their son had come back. Ashok suggested that the family should visit their village without informing anyone in advance to see if Titu recognized them. With a mix of nervousness, curiosity, and many emotions, Suresh's family went with Ashok to meet Titu. At that time, Titu was eating. But the moment he saw Suresh's family standing at the door, he ran towards them and hugged everyone tightly. He started shouting loudly, "Look, my mother and father have come." He called Suresh's parents his real mother and father. But when his eyes fell on Uma, he suddenly became shy. The 5-year-old boy started behaving like an adult man. He gestured to Uma to sit beside him and asked about the children. He even mentioned a specific incident from a fair in Dolpur that only Suresh and Uma knew about. Uma was stunned. When it was time to leave, Titu saw their car outside. He had never seen a car properly before, but he behaved as if it was completely normal for him. He thought he was going to Agra with them. But when he realized they were leaving without him, he got furious. He shouted at his mother, fought with his father, and ran to hug Suresh's father, Titu Singh, calling him his real father. They lovingly explained and promised they would come to meet him soon. Later it was decided that Titu would be taken to Agra one day to verify his past life memories. Titu not only recognized his past parents as he had claimed, but he also revealed personal conversations he had with his wife. This removed a lot of doubt that he had simply read about the case somewhere. But at the same time, it increased the worry of his current parents. What could be worse for parents than their own child considering someone else as his real mother and father? They were struggling with mixed feelings. They worried that when he grew up, he might completely cut ties with them. Before taking Titu to Agra, some tests were planned. Test 1. While coming by car, Suresh's brothers deliberately drove past the shop at high speed without stopping to check if he would recognize it. As soon as the car passed the shop, Titu shouted loudly, "Stop! Stop! My shop is behind. Where are you going?" He had recognized the road, the market, and the shop while sitting inside a fast-moving car. Only someone who had passed through those streets thousands of times could do that. Test 2. When Titu entered the shop, his walk and body language were not like a 5-year-old child but like the owner of the showroom. He sat on the stool exactly like Suresh used to. He even pointed out which parts of the shop had been renovated and which were exactly the same as when he was alive. Result: pass. Test 3. After the shop, Titu was taken to Suresh's house. Before his arrival, both of Suresh's children were sent outside to play with the neighborhood kids. Even here, Titu passed. He recognized both his sons among the group of children in the mahalla. All these evidences were enough for everyone to believe that Titu Singh was the reincarnation of Suresh Varma. But the story doesn't end here. The case became huge in the media. Professor N.K. Chutta from Delhi University got to know about it. He was part of a research team with Dr. Ian Stevenson. Dr. Ian Stevenson was a highly respected professor from the University of Virginia, famous for his scientific research on reincarnation. He had written many books on the subject. On Dr. Stevenson's advice, researcher Antonia Mills, his colleague, started studying Titu's case closely. Suresh's family had said that Suresh had an aggressive and short-tempered nature. He would fight over small things. Dr. Mills noticed that Titu was also developing the same nature. Once, when Dr. Mills took Titu to the market to buy bangles, he threatened the shopkeeper and said, "Antonia is my friend. Don't even think of taking money from her by mistake." She later mentioned this incident in her research paper. The biggest question was, did Titu know about Suresh's killers? Had he seen their faces? Then 5-year-old Titu made a shocking revelation that set the media on fire. He said that on the evening of August 28, 1983, when he was shot, he had recognized one of the two attackers. That man was none other than one of Suresh's own business associates. The Agra police took the case seriously. Based on Titu's statement, they arrested the man and interrogated him. He eventually confessed to the crime. On the basis of this confession, the 1983 Suresh Varma murder case was reopened. This was the first time a reincarnation-related case had come to court. Titu was called to testify. He described the entire incident in detail in court. The biggest turning point was the post-mortem and birthmark report. Just like the bullet had hit Suresh in the head, Titu had 2 identical marks on his head. When his hair was parted, 2 marks exactly matching the size and shape of the bullet's entry and exit wounds were found. Dr. Ian Stevenson mentioned in his research that there is often a connection between birthmarks and injuries from a past life, a belief also present in Hinduism. Dr. Antonia Mills' research papers on Titu were also submitted in court. Based on all this evidence, the Agra court accepted that Titu was the reincarnation of Suresh Varma, and the killers were punished. The murderers could never have imagined in their wildest dreams that the man whose life they had taken would be born again and return to deliver justice for their crime. Now the final big question: did Titu go to live with his past life parents, or did he stay with his present parents? Suresh may have returned in the form of Titu, but he was no longer Suresh. The soul was the same, but the body was that of a child. For Uma, he was no longer her husband. For his children, he was no longer their father. Suresh's father also knew that if they got too close to Titu, his current parents would lose their son while he was still alive, and they already knew the pain of losing a son. Both families eventually returned to their own lives. Titu lived his childhood with dual memories and grew up in his village. Today, Titu Singh, whose real name is Titu Singh, is an assistant professor at BHU. He still remembers everything clearly and often visits his past family in Agra. Today he believes that we cannot live 2 lives at once. What is past is gone. What we have is today. This extraordinary case of reincarnation teaches us that life is not a straight line. It is a circle where the beginning and the end eventually meet. That was today's case. Please subscribe to the channel and support us so we can keep bringing more such documentaries for you. Take care, stay awesome, and we'll meet soon in the next case.